A ferocious lion's jaws snapped mere inches from alien xenobiologist Belos's face, drool dripping from razor-sharp fangs. Acting on pure instinct, human wildlife biologist Roy Reyes fired a flare gun into the air and shouted a simple command, "Down, boy! Stay!" To everyone's shock, the massive predator immediately backed off and laid down, allowing a wide-eyed Belos to scurry to safety. The trembling Talarian alien dropped to his knees before Roy, bowing reverently and murmuring in an alien tongue. Baffled, Roy helped Belos up and checked him for injuries. Word of the incident spread like wildfire through the expedition camp. In the following days, the Talarians watched Roy's every move, whispering amongst themselves and trying to uncover the secret to his beast-taming abilities. Desperate for answers, Roy contacted his superiors on Earth. He learned that in Talarian mythology, ancient legends spoke of godlike beings who could command fierce beasts with a single word. The parallels to Roy's lion encounter were too significant to ignore. As Roy investigated further, a startling revelation emerged. The Talarians had begun using the phrase, "Down, boy, stay," in their religious practices. They believed it to be a sacred prayer humans used to assert dominion over apex predators. Video of the lion incident went viral across the galaxy, igniting a frenzy among the devoutly spiritual Talarians. Now the center of a growing cultural and religious storm, Roy found himself grappling with his newfound status as an unwitting icon. Belos, his self-appointed disciple, insisted on accompanying him on all future expeditions. The stage was set for a clash of beliefs as more Talarians flocked to Earth, eager to witness the power of the divine beastmasters firsthand. Roy realized he faced the unintended consequences of a single, fateful encounter with the king of the jungle. Summoned back to Earth by the head of the Global Xenobiology Institute, Dr. Kenji Nakamura, Roy found himself standing in the austere office of his superior. Dr. Nakamura's brow furrowed as he paced behind his desk, the weight of the situation evident in his tense shoulders. "Roy, this prayer craze has gotten out of hand," Dr. Nakamura said, his voice stern yet tinged with concern. "We need to get to the bottom of this before it spirals into a full-blown cultural crisis." Roy nodded, fully aware of the implications of his accidental discovery. "I understand, sir. What do you suggest we do?" Dr. Nakamura stopped pacing and fixed Roy with a determined gaze. "I'm tasking you with leading an investigative team to uncover the truth behind the Talarians' worship of humans as divine beastmasters. You'll be working with Belos, who's now Earth's leading expert on Talarian culture, and Dr. Lena Sorensen, a renowned xenopsychologist." The team wasted no time in preparing for their journey to the Talarian homeworld, Talaria Prime. As they stepped off the spacecraft onto the alien soil, Roy was overwhelmed by the sight of throngs of adoring Talarians, all clamoring to catch a glimpse of the great Beastmaster. Whisked away to the capital city, the team found themselves in the presence of the ethereal Talarian High Priestess, Arilyn. In the grand hall of the temple, Arilyn revealed ancient scriptures that spoke of powerful beings who once walked among the stars, commanding fierce creatures with divine words. "These myths bear an uncanny resemblance to your actions, Roy Reyes," Arilyn said, her voice filled with reverence. "The Talarians believe that humans are the descendants of these legendary figures." As Roy and his team delved deeper into Talarian history, they uncovered a startling revelation. The ancient Talarians once worshipped a race of technologically advanced aliens known as the progenitors, who possessed the ability to control animals through advanced neural implants. Could it be that the progenitors visited Earth in the distant past? Dr. Sorensen mused, her eyes wide with the implications. If they left behind remnants of their technology, it could explain Roy's seemingly miraculous ability to command the lion. The discovery only fueled the Talarians' belief in human divinity, leading to a surge in pilgrimages to Earth. Entrepreneurs and opportunists back home wasted no time in setting up prayer lodges near wildlife reserves, offering Talarians the chance to witness the power of the Beastmasters firsthand. As tensions rose between the Talarian pilgrims and human authorities, Roy grappled with the weight of his newfound status as a religious icon. He knew that the truth behind his lion encounter was far more mundane than the Talarians believed, but revealing the reality could shatter their faith and lead to disastrous consequences. Unbeknownst to Roy and his team, their every move was being watched by a shadowy figure known only as the Lion King. This enigmatic individual, rumored to be the mastermind behind the prayer craze, had plans of their own for the unwitting humans and their devoted alien followers. As the team prepared to return to Earth with their findings, the stage was set for a clash of beliefs, ambitions, and the very nature of faith itself. Roy and his team knew they were navigating uncharted waters, but they were determined to unravel the mystery of the progenitors and their connection to Earth, no matter the consequences. The team's return to Earth was met with a flurry of activity at the Global Xenobiology Institute. Dr. Nakamura listened intently as Roy, Belos, and Dr. Sorensen presented their findings, his eyes widening at the mention of the progenitors. So you're saying these advanced aliens may have given early humans the ability to control animals? Dr. Nakamura asked, leaning forward in his chair. Roy nodded, pulling up holographic images of the ancient Talarian scriptures. It's a working theory, sir. The parallels between the progenitors' technology and the Talarians' myths are too significant to ignore. Dr. Sorensen chimed in, her voice steady but tinged with excitement. If we can prove this connection, it could revolutionize our understanding of human history and our place in the galaxy. After a moment of contemplation, Dr. Nakamura stood up. Very well. I'm approving additional funding for your research. We need to get to the bottom of this. As the team delved deeper into their investigation, the world outside the Institute was changing rapidly. News of Jackson Ryder's prayer lodge in Kenya spread like wildfire. Roy watched a holovid report showcasing Talarian tourists, their eyes wide with wonder as they observed human rangers interacting with lions and elephants. This is unprecedented, Belos muttered, his alien features contorted in a mix of fascination and concern. My people are flocking to Earth in droves. The establishment of the Interspecies Religious Tourism Board brought a semblance of order to the growing industry, but it did little to quell the rising tensions. Roy found himself caught in the middle of heated debates between various factions. During a particularly tense meeting with animal rights activists, a passionate protester confronted Roy. How can you stand by while these creatures are exploited for alien entertainment? She demanded, her face flushed with anger. Roy raised his hands in a placating gesture. I understand your concerns. We're working to ensure the animals' well-being is prioritized. The conservation efforts funded by these lodges are making a real difference. As the controversy swirled, whispers of the mysterious Lion King began to reach Roy's ears. Conspiracy theories abounded, each more outlandish than the last. Roy couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this figure than mere rumor. Late one night, as Roy pored over data in his office, Dr. Sorensen burst in, her eyes wild with excitement. Roy, you need to see this, she said, thrusting a tablet into his hands. On the screen was a grainy video of Roy's original lion encounter. As he watched, Roy noticed something he'd missed before, a faint shimmer in the air just before he fired the flare gun. What am I looking at? Roy asked, squinting at the footage. Dr. Sorensen pointed to the anomaly. That distortion matches the energy signature we found in the Talarian ruins. I think someone was there, using progenitor technology to influence the lion's behavior. The implications hit Roy like a thunderbolt. The Lion King, he breathed. They set the whole thing up. With this new lead, Roy and his team prepared for their most daring expedition yet, a journey to a distant planet rumored to hold the ruins of a progenitor city. As they boarded their ship, Roy couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of uncovering a truth that would shake the foundations of both human and Talarian society. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Roy strapped himself in, his mind racing with possibilities. As they lifted off, he gazed out at the Earth below, wondering what secrets awaited them among the stars, and what role the enigmatic Lion King would play in the unfolding drama. The sleek interstellar vessel touched down on Kyber 9's rugged surface, kicking up swirls of iridescent dust. Roy stepped out, his boots sinking into the alien soil. The air shimmered with an otherworldly haze, distorting the crumbling spires of an ancient metropolis on the horizon. Incredible, Belos whispered, his eyes wide as he took in the alien landscape. Dr. Sorensen consulted her handheld scanner. The strongest energy signatures are coming from that direction, she said, pointing towards a cluster of dilapidated structures overgrown with bioluminescent vines. The team picked their way through the ruins, marveling at the remnants of a civilization lost to time. Massive stone columns lay toppled, their surfaces etched with intricate symbols that pulsed with a faint blue light. "Look at this," Roy called out, brushing away a tangle of phosphorescent flora to reveal a hidden entrance. The group descended into the darkness, their path illuminated by the eerie glow of their equipment. Deep beneath the surface, they entered a vast chamber untouched for millennia. Holographic displays flickered to life, bathing the room in a soft, pulsating light. Roy approached a central console, his fingers hovering over unfamiliar controls. "Careful," Dr. Sorensen warned. "We don't know what—" Before she could finish, the room hummed to life. Streams of data cascaded across the walls, filling the air with shimmering projections of DNA strands, neural networks, and unfamiliar creatures. It's all here," Roy breathed, his eyes darting from one display to another. The progenitors' animal control technology, their experiments, everything. Belos reverently touched a holographic representation of a neural implant. "Our legends speak of such marvels. To see them with my own eyes." As they delved deeper into the archives, the true scope of the progenitors' work became clear. Dr. Sorensen's face paled as she deciphered a series of logs. "Roy, look at this," she said, her voice tight. "They didn't just develop this technology, they seeded it on multiple worlds, including Earth." Roy's mind raced as he absorbed the implications. "So when I commanded that lion—" "You may have been tapping into abilities passed down from the progenitors themselves," Dr. Sorensen finished. Belos fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the revelation. "It is true, then. Humans are the inheritors of the progenitors' divine power." Roy placed a hand on the alien's shoulder. "Belos, this isn't about divinity. It's advanced technology, nothing more." "But the implications," Dr. Sorensen interjected. "If this information gets out, it could have severe consequences. The ethical ramifications alone—" Their debate was cut short by the chirp of Roy's communicator. Jackson Ryder's holographic form materialized, his face grim. "Roy, we've got a situation. The Liberators have attacked 3 prayer lodges in the last hour. They're calling for the liberation of all captive predators." Roy's stomach dropped. "Any casualties?" Jackson nodded solemnly. "Dozens injured, both human and Talarian. And it's getting worse. Their leader, Krylath, is rallying more extremists to his cause." As Roy processed the news, a shadow fell across the chamber entrance. A figure stepped into view, silhouetted against the faint light from above. "I'm afraid your discoveries have come too late, Mr. Reyes." A familiar voice echoed through the chamber. "The wheels are already in motion." Roy squinted, trying to make out the newcomer's features. "Who are you?" The figure chuckled, stepping forward to reveal a face Roy had seen countless times in news reports and mission briefings. "You know me as the Lion King, but my true name is irrelevant. What matters is the reckoning that's coming." Roy's hand instinctively moved to his weapon. "What do you want?" The Lion King's eyes gleamed with a predatory intensity. "The same thing you do, Mr. Reyes, to unlock the true potential of the progenitor's legacy. But unlike you, I'm not afraid to use it." Before Roy could respond, the chamber filled with a piercing sound. Roy and his team crumpled to the ground, clutching their heads in agony. Through blurred vision, Roy saw the Lion King approach the central console. "Thank you for leading me to this treasure trove," the enigmatic figure said, fingers dancing across the controls. "Now, let me show you what true beast mastery looks like." As consciousness slipped away, Roy's last thoughts were of the chaos unfolding on Earth and the realization that their discovery had set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy forever. Roy's eyes snapped open, his head throbbing from the sonic assault. The chamber lay in disarray, holographic displays flickering erratically. Dr. Sorensen and Belos stirred nearby, groaning as they regained consciousness. "Everyone all right?" Roy croaked, struggling to his feet. Before they could respond, Roy's communicator chirped urgently. Jackson Ryder's holographic form materialized, his face etched with concern. Roy, it's worse than we thought. The Liberators have launched coordinated attacks on prayer lodges worldwide. They're using something to control the animals. It's chaos out there. Roy's stomach clenched. We're on our way back. Prepare a full briefing. As their ship broke atmosphere, the team watched in horror as news feeds displayed scenes of carnage. Lions, elephants, and other predators rampaged through tourist-filled lodges, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Back at the Global Xenobiology Institute, Roy and his team huddled with Dr. Nakamura and a grim-faced UN Security Council. Satellite imagery revealed a hidden base in the Sahara, the epicenter of the attacks. We've identified the mastermind, Dr. Nakamura announced, pulling up a holographic dossier. Voresh, a rogue Talarian general. He's been experimenting with progenitor neural implants, reverse engineering them to control apex predators. Belos recoiled, his alien features contorting in shock. Impossible. No Talarian would dare blaspheme against the sacred beastmasters. Roy's mind raced, connecting the dots. The lion encounter, the prayer lodges, it was all a setup. Voresh orchestrated everything to lure Talarian pilgrims here as test subjects. As the team formulated a plan to counter Voresh's mind control technology, reports flooded in of Liberator cells joining forces with the rogue general. The UN mobilized its Interspecies Defense Corps, with Roy's team at the forefront of the operation. Days blurred into weeks as Roy worked tirelessly, applying their progenitor research to develop countermeasures. Field tests showed promise, but time was running out. During a rare moment of respite, Roy received a frantic call from Lena, his partner on the xenobiology research team. Roy, I've discovered something about the alpha lion from your first encounter. It's not what we thought. The transmission cut off abruptly. Roy's blood ran cold as he tried to re-establish contact. Hours later, a chilling message arrived from Voresh himself. Your mate is quite the scientist, Mr. Reyes. Her insights will prove invaluable to our cause. Come alone to these coordinates if you wish to see her alive again. Roy's fist clenched as he stared at the message, torn between duty and love. He knew it was a trap, but the thought of Lena in Voresh's clutches made his decision clear. As Roy prepared to embark on a high-stakes rescue mission, Belos approached him, eyes downcast. I must confess something, Roy. I have been in contact with Krylath, the Liberator leader, but I now see the error of our ways. Allow me to accompany you. My knowledge of Talarian tactics may prove useful. Roy studied his alien friend, sensing the weight of his guilt. With a nod, he gestured for Belos to join him. As their stealth craft approached Voresh's stronghold, nestled deep in the Sahara, Roy's mind raced with possibilities. What had Lena discovered about the alpha lion? And how did it connect to the larger conspiracy unfolding before them? The answers, Roy sensed, lay within the fortress looming on the horizon, along with dangers beyond their wildest imaginations. The stealth craft touched down silently in the shadow of a dune, its cloaking field shimmering as it deactivated. Roy and Belos crouched low, scanning the horizon. Voresh's compound loomed before them, a fortress of gleaming metal and force fields nestled incongruously in the Saharan sands. There, Belos whispered, pointing to a barely visible seam in the perimeter defenses. The secondary entrance. Krylath told me about it. Roy nodded, tapping commands into his wrist console. Team, we move on my mark. Remember, non-lethal takedowns only. We're here for Lena. As they approached the entrance, a bone-chilling roar split the air. A massive lion, its eyes glowing an unnatural blue, leapt from atop a nearby dune. Roy raised his sonic disruptor, but the beast was faster, batting the weapon aside with a swipe of its paw. Roy locked eyes with the creature, feeling a familiar pressure building in his mind. The world fell away as he was pulled into a psychic maelstrom, flashes of alien landscapes and primordial hunts flickering through his consciousness. Roy! Belos's voice snapped him back to reality. The Talarian stood over the unconscious lion, a neural inhibitor patch gleaming on its flank. We must hurry. They know we're here. Alarms blared as Roy and his team fought their way through the compound. Mind-controlled predators lunged from every shadow, their movements unnaturally coordinated. Roy's specially designed countermeasures proved effective, but their progress was agonizingly slow. They burst into a vast central chamber, just as Varesh raised a ceremonial dagger over Lena's bound form. The rogue Talarian's eyes blazed with fanatical fervor. "You're too late, Reyes," Varesh snarled. "With this sacrifice, I will—" His words were cut short as Roy's gaze locked onto the towering alpha lion at Varesh's side. Time seemed to slow as Roy felt himself pulled once more into that psychic battleground. This time, he pushed back, drawing on every scrap of knowledge gleaned from the progenitor ruins. Images flashed between them. Savannas bathed in alien sunlight, the rise and fall of civilizations, the profound connection between predator and prey. Roy felt the weight of eons pressing down upon him, threatening to crush his will. But beneath it all, he sensed something else, a loneliness, a yearning for connection. Understanding flooded through Roy. This wasn't about dominance, it was about balance. With a mental wrench, Roy severed the link between the Alpha and Varesh's neural implants. The chamber erupted into chaos as the assembled lions turned on their former masters. Varesh howled in fury, fleeing through a hidden passage as Krylath and his liberators were overwhelmed. Roy rushed to Lena's side, cutting her bonds. "Are you all right? What did you discover?" Lena's eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and awe. The Alpha, it's not just controlling the others. It's channeling something far older, far more powerful. A deafening roar cut off further conversation. The Alpha lion stood before them, its intelligent gaze fixed on Roy, no longer hostile, but wary, questioning. "We need to go," Belos urged, helping Lena to her feet. "The human authorities will be here soon." As they made their escape, Roy cast one last look at the Alpha. A plan was already forming in his mind, one that could change everything. Days later, as the dust settled and the UN scrambled to contain the fallout, Roy stood before a gathering of human and Talarian leaders. Belos at his side, he laid out his audacious proposal. "The Alpha Lion isn't our enemy," Roy explained, his voice steady despite the murmurs of disbelief. "It's a link to something greater, a force that could unite our species rather than divide them." Lena stepped forward, her face etched with concern. "Roy, you can't be serious. After everything that's happened—" "I know it sounds crazy," Roy acknowledged, "but I've seen what's possible. We have a chance to build something new, something better." As the debate raged around him, Roy's thoughts turned to the challenges ahead. Varesh was still out there, no doubt plotting his revenge. The Alpha Lion remained an enigma, its true potential barely glimpsed. But for the first time since this crisis began, Roy felt a glimmer of hope, a chance to forge a new path forward, not just for humanity, but for all sentient beings. The hunt for Varesh and the Alpha would take them across the stars, but this time they wouldn't be seeking dominance, they'd be seeking understanding. Roy's proposal sent shockwaves through the assembled leaders. Murmurs of disbelief and cautious hope rippled through the chamber. A united interspecies organization? Admiral Chen of the UN Security Council leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "It's unprecedented." Roy nodded, his gaze steady. "The interspecies spiritual compact, a bridge between worlds built on mutual respect and understanding." In the days that followed, Roy worked tirelessly, reaching out to moderate Talarian leaders. Elder Kavath, a respected spiritual guide, proved a crucial ally. "Your vision aligns with our most sacred teachings," Kavath said, his weathered face etched with curiosity. "But how will you convince the skeptics?" Roy's answer came in the form of a majestic roar. The Alpha Lion, now named Regulus, padded into view, its intelligent gaze sweeping the room. Gasps of awe and fear filled the air. "Regulus is not a pet or a symbol," Roy explained, his hand resting lightly on the lion's flank. "He's an ambassador, representing the vital role apex predators play in the natural order." As word spread, opposition mounted. In his prison cell, Krylath raged against the compact. "Blasphemy!" he shouted, pounding his fists against the force field. "Reyes seeks to domesticate our sacred beasts, to twist our faith to human ends." The inaugural ceremony of the compact took place on a crisp autumn day. Roy stood before a diverse crowd of humans and aliens, his heart racing with nervous energy. As he began his speech, a figure burst from the crowd, a plasma pistol raised. Time seemed to slow. Roy saw the assassin's finger tighten on the trigger. Then a golden blur streaked past him. Regulus leapt, his massive form sailing through the air. The lion's eyes blazed with psychic energy, and the would-be killer crumpled to the ground, clutching his head. In the aftermath, support for the compact surged. Roy found himself thrust into the spotlight, hailed as a visionary by some, denounced as a heretic by others. Lena approached him one evening, her face grim. "We've got a problem, Roy. Varesh is still out there, and he's not going to stop." Roy nodded, his expression hardening. "I need you to lead a task force. Find Varesh, neutralize his forces, whatever it takes." As Lena's team embarked on their covert mission, Roy turned his attention to the compact's first major initiative. On the lush moon of Hesperus, construction began on a pioneering anthropological outpost. Roy stood at the edge of a verdant clearing, watching as pilgrims from a dozen worlds gathered to observe a herd of towering hexapods. Regulus lay nearby, his golden coat shimmering in the alien sunlight. Suddenly, Roy felt a familiar pressure building in his mind. Regulus's eyes locked onto his, and a stream of images flooded his consciousness. Ancient ruins, star fields, and creatures beyond imagination flashed before him. As the vision faded, Roy stumbled, steadying himself against a nearby tree. The words echoed in his mind, cryptic yet charged with significance. "The dawn of the Beastmasters approaches. Across inhabited worlds, the old ways shall be reborn." Roy's communicator chirped, snapping him back to reality. Lena's holographic form materialized, her expression grim. "We hit Varesh's base on Draxius 5, she reported. "Heavy casualties among his loyalists, but the bastard slipped away again. That's not all, though. We found evidence linking him to a Dracian nationalist group. This thing goes deeper than we thought." Roy's mind raced, processing the implications. As he formulated a response, Regulus patted over, nudging his hand. An idea began to form, audacious and potentially world-changing. "Lena, I need you back here as soon as possible," Roy said, his voice tight with urgency. "I think I know how we can end this, once and for all." As he ended the transmission, Roy turned to face the gathered pilgrims. The weight of his next decision pressed down upon him. The compact's future, and perhaps the fate of multiple civilizations, hung in the balance. Regulus's golden eyes met his, a silent question passing between them. Roy took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. "All right, old friend," he murmured. "Let's show them what true understanding looks like." Roy's communicator chimed urgently, interrupting his contemplation. Lena's holographic form flickered to life, her face etched with concern. "Roy, we have a situation. Regulus has made a suggestion. It's controversial, to say the least." Roy felt a familiar pressure building behind his eyes as Regulus patted over, the alpha lion's gaze intense. In a rush of images and sensations, Roy understood the proposal. His breath caught in his throat. "Telepathic mind-altering?" Roy whispered, processing the implications. "To show the truth about humanity's non-divinity?" Lena nodded grimly. "The compact's in an uproar. We need you back at headquarters immediately." Hours later, Roy stood before a divided council. The chamber crackled with tension as voices rose in heated debate. "This is a violation of mental sanctity," Lena shouted, her fists clenched. "We cannot stoop to such tactics, no matter the stakes." Elder Kavath's weathered face creased with worry. "And yet, if we do nothing, Varesh may ignite an intergalactic holy war. The loss of life would be catastrophic." Roy listened, his mind racing. Finally, he raised a hand, silencing the room. "I propose a compromise," he said, his voice steady. "Regulus will project informative visions, but only to willing recipients. No forced indoctrination." Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the council considered the proposal. After tense deliberation, a majority voted in favor. The Opening Eyes campaign was born. On Hesperus, Roy watched as the first volunteers stepped forward. Humans and aliens alike gathered in the sacred glen, their faces a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Regulus stood at the center, his golden form radiating an aura of calm. As the alpha lion's eyes began to glow, the air itself seemed to shimmer. Gasps of wonder filled the clearing as visions bloomed in the minds of the participants. Roy caught glimpses, ancient symbiosis, the delicate balance of ecosystems, the profound connection between all living things. Avrilup let out a trill of joy, bounding over to nuzzle against a startled Yarnab. The tusked creature's initial wariness melted away, and soon the two species frolicked together in harmony. "It's working," Lena breathed, her earlier skepticism replaced by awe. But their triumph was short-lived. Alarms blared, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. Roy's wrist computer flashed with urgent alerts. "Multiple explosions at compact outposts," he reported grimly. "Hundreds dead. It's Voresh." As emergency teams scrambled to respond, another transmission came through. Roy's blood ran cold as he recognized the insignia of the Villian Horde, notorious marauders known for their brutality. "They're amassing a fleet," Lena reported, her face pale, "headed straight for Hesperus." Roy's mind raced, weighing options. They had limited defenses on the pacifist moon, and evacuation would take too long. His gaze fell on Regulus, and an audacious plan began to form. "Gather every telepathically sensitive being you can find," Roy ordered, "and round up the megafauna. We're going to link minds." As the Villian ships entered orbit, Roy stood atop a hill overlooking the sacred glen. Regulus crouched beside him, a low growl rumbling in the lion's chest. All around them, humans and animals alike stood ready, their minds open to the coming connection. The first dropships screamed through the atmosphere, disgorging hordes of screaming pirates. Roy took a deep breath, placed his hand on Regulus's flank, and plunged into the depths of their shared consciousness. A tidal wave of sensory input threatened to overwhelm him. Roy pushed through, focusing on the task at hand. As one, the defenders of Hesperus surged forward to meet the invaders. What happened next defied explanation. Humans and beasts moved in perfect synchronization, their actions guided by a collective intelligence. But more than that, they broadcast visions, hauntingly beautiful glimpses of the truth the Opening Eyes campaign sought to share. Roy watched through 1,000 eyes as Villian raiders stumbled, their weapons falling from nerveless fingers. Some collapsed to their knees, overwhelmed by the revelation that their conquest was built on lies. Others fled in terror, unable to reconcile the cognitive dissonance. In orbit, stunned marauder crews stared at their view screens in disbelief. The expected slaughter had transformed into something entirely different. On the moonscape below, humans danced in joyous harmony with the very beasts they had come to subjugate. As the last Villian ships turned tail and fled, Roy finally allowed himself to relax. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Opening Eyes had proven its potential, but challenges still lay ahead. Voresh was still out there, no doubt plotting his next move. And while the campaign had gained momentum, there were still billions across the galaxy who remained in the dark. Roy gazed out at the celebration unfolding in the sacred glen, a small smile playing at his lips. For the first time in a long while, he felt genuine hope for the future. Roy watched the celebration in the sacred glen, his mind already racing with possibilities. The success of Opening Eyes had proven the power of shared understanding. It was time to take their mission to the stars. In the months that followed, the interspecies spiritual compact gained momentum across the galaxy. Roy and Regulus traveled from world to world, their bond serving as a living example of human-animal cooperation. On Phaleria, Roy stood in awe as a group of Laman pilgrims reverently approached a herd of massive cragbacks. The beasts, each the size of a small house, rumbled contentedly as the pilgrims began to groom their rocky hides. "This is incredible," Roy murmured to Elder Kavath, who stood beside him. "A month ago, the Lamans would have seen this as sacrilege." Kavath nodded, his eyes twinkling. "The visions have shown them the truth of our shared origins. Now they honor the sacred beast through care, not worship. As the compact's influence grew, so did its initiatives. Roy received word of Jiro Canavez's groundbreaking Life Bond program on New Terra. Intrigued, he arranged a visit to the sprawling facility. Jiro, a wiry man with an infectious enthusiasm, led Roy through state-of-the-art habitats. Our clients undergo rigorous screening and preparation, he explained. Only then are they allowed to mind meld with our resident apex predators. They stopped before an enclosure housing a massive six-limbed feline. Its iridescent scales shimmered as it regarded them with intelligent eyes. "This is Drusilla," Jiro said, his voice filled with respect. "A Klath matriarch from Varad. She's been instrumental in fostering empathy between our species." Roy watched as a carefully vetted human entered the enclosure. Under Regulus's watchful guidance, the man and Drusilla engaged in a transparent psychic exchange. The man's face transformed from nervousness to wonder as he experienced the world through Drusilla's senses. But not everyone embraced the compact's message. On Corlen, Roy received urgent news of cyber attacks targeting compact databases. Moldar clerics, clinging to their entrenched beliefs, sought to erase what they saw as human heresy. "We can't let them succeed," Roy told Lena via hologram. "Those archives contain vital cultural knowledge. If we lose them, we lose our chance at true understanding." Lena nodded grimly. "I've got our best cybersecurity team on it. We'll stop them, Roy." The attacks on Corlin were just the beginning. Reports flooded in of escalating conflicts across the galaxy. General Trusmal, a shadowy figure Roy had long suspected of backing Voresh, began smuggling illegal AI droid sentries to combat alien faiths. The violence came to a head on Hesperus. Roy was addressing a gathering of new compact initiates when the first explosions rocked the sacred glen. Droids, their sensors glowing an ominous red, emerged from the smoke. "Everyone, take cover!" Roy shouted, diving behind a fallen pillar. He watched in horror as the droids opened fire, cutting down innocent civilians. In the chaos, Roy felt a familiar pressure building in his mind. Regulus bounded into view, his eyes blazing with psychic energy. As a droid took aim at Roy, the Alpha Lion unleashed a pulse of mental force. The machine crumpled, its circuitry fried. Working in tandem, Roy and Regulus fought their way through the onslaught. When the dust settled, over 40 lay dead, with dozens more wounded. Roy's heart ached at the senseless loss of life. As emergency teams tended to the wounded, Lena's hologram flickered to life. Her face was grim, but her eyes held a spark of triumph. "We've got him, Roy," she said. "Varesh. He was attempting some kind of psychic control experiment. It backfired spectacularly." Roy's eyes widened. "Is he—" "Alive," Lena confirmed. "But his test subjects—" "It wasn't pretty, Roy. We're bringing him in now." As Roy processed the news, Regulus patted over. The lion's eyes met his, and a final vision bloomed in Roy's mind. He saw Varesh's homeworld, once lush and vibrant, now ravaged by climate catastrophe. He felt the despair that had driven Varesh to such extremes. Roy's mind raced with the implications. If they could use Regulus's power to share climate solutions, to plant seeds of progress in receptive minds across the galaxy, the potential was staggering. "Lena," Roy said, his voice tight with urgency, "I need you to gather the Compact's leadership. I have an idea that could change everything." As he ended the transmission, Roy gazed out at the devastation around him. The path ahead would be fraught with ethical dilemmas and unforeseen consequences. But for the first time, he glimpsed a future where understanding could truly prevail over conflict. Regulus rumbled beside him, a low sound that vibrated through Roy's bones. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Roy's plan to use Regulus's power for galaxy-wide climate solutions backfired spectacularly. As the Mind Force initiative launched, Roy stood in the sacred glen, watching holographic displays light up with incoming data from across the stars. At first, the results seemed promising. On Hafra 9, factory workers paused their assembly lines, eyes glazed as visions of environmental reformation flowed through their minds. But within minutes, alarms blared. "Roy!" Lena's voice crackled over the comm. We've got a situation. Mass panic on HFY 9. The visions, they're triggering severe anxiety attacks. Roy's stomach dropped as he watched footage of workers collapsing, clutching their heads in agony. Others lashed out violently, smashing equipment and attacking their colleagues. Before he could process the disaster unfolding, another alert pinged. On Draxius 5, General Trusamal's militia had launched an assault on compact enclaves. AI droids marched through the streets, their weapons trained on fleeing civilians. "This isn't what we wanted," Roy whispered, his hands shaking as he tried to shut down the Mind Force transmission. But it was too late. The psychic wave had already spread too far, too fast. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Protests, riots, bombings. On one screen, Roy watched in horror as Muldar extremists detonated explosives at a compact outpost, the building crumbling to dust with clerics still inside. Regulus padded over, his golden eyes filled with sorrow. The lion's mind brushed against Roy's, conveying a sense of urgency. More visions flowed between them, glimpses of societal collapse, of civilizations teetering on the brink. "We have to keep going," Roy said, his voice hoarse. "If we can just reach enough minds, show them the truth." He dialed up the intensity of the transmission, pouring more of his own mental energy into the link. Regulus growled in warning, but Roy pushed on, desperate to salvage their mission. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate and catastrophic. On New Terra, Jiro Canavez stumbled out of his life bond facility, tears streaming down his face. Behind him, the building's security systems engaged, locking down the habitats. "What have you done, Roy?" Jiro whispered, watching as his life's work crumbled around him. In orbit above Hesperus, Lena stood on the bridge of her ship, her face a mask of fury and betrayal. She slammed her fist on the console, ending the transmission from Roy. "Enough!" she snarled. "Form up the Free Vigil. We're putting a stop to this madness." As Lena's ship descended towards the sacred glen, Roy felt the psychic field shift. Varesha's corrupted influence seeped in, twisting the Mind Force transmissions into nightmarish propaganda. Visions of holy war and human subjugation spread like wildfire across vulnerable minds. Riots erupted on frontier worlds. On Phaleria, Laman pilgrims turned on the cragbacks they had so recently revered, attacking the gentle giants with improvised weapons. The beasts' confused bellows echoed across the plains as they fled. Roy staggered, overwhelmed by the feedback of pain and chaos flooding through the psychic link. He looked to Regulus for support, but the Alpha Lion had collapsed, his form shimmering with distortion. All around them, the megafauna of Hesperus began to change. Tentacles sprouted from the backs of grazing herbivores. Predators' teeth elongated grotesquely, piercing through their own skulls. The very air seemed to vibrate with their agonized cries. As Free Vigil ships touched down, Roy realized the full magnitude of his mistake. He had sought to heal the galaxy's wounds, but in his arrogance, he had only torn them wider. The compact was fracturing, and with it, the delicate balance of the cosmos itself. Lena emerged from her ship, flanked by armed guards. Her eyes met Roy's, filled with a mix of pity and disgust. As she raised her hand to signal the attack, Roy knew that the real battle for the soul of the galaxy had only just begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.